So a little bit more background information about the conflict is that at the time in 2015 when the conflict first had taken place, my boyfriend was still in the Navy, and I had just gotten accepted to GMU, where when he was back home and not being deployed, he would like to make sure that I was always responding, and that I responded every single time, like right after every single text. When it started affecting me mentally and emotionally, we started getting into bigger and bigger fights. It eventually blew up into something that was 10 times harder than it should have been, because he wanted me to text him while I was in class, and I couldn't do that. And he wanted me to always let him know where I was going, even if I was just on campus with my friends, which was very, in my opinion, was very low top for him. It was seen as a way of protection. That way, knowing where I was, so that if something had happened, that they could send someone to come and get me if something bad had happened. I personally did not see the need for it, at least to that extent that he was giving. Over time, we've gotten better, and actually to the point now where we can go for a couple days without messaging. I know it's not ideal for him, but he does respect the fact that I am extremely busy. And he understands that it's hard for me to always be messaging constantly back and forth, especially with 2 different sleep schedules and work schedules and school schedules now. This is my boyfriend, Matt, and we're going to be talking about a conflict that we've had in the past about communication. So to start off, what were some of your needs when we were having the conflicts about communication?
The needs for my side of communication would be to have good morning text, afternoon text, things that if you were to do that would concern if you went into town or somewhere to the mall, and if I got a message or a call saying where you were going at, so that way we would know, Mom and I, to see where you were going.
And what were some of your concerns when I wasn't communicating with you? Like, what were the main feelings that you were having?
It would probably be where if you drove somewhere or went somewhere with your friend, if any car trouble and issues had happened, then we wouldn't be able to know what to deal with the situation if it was a state of emergency.
Were there any other concerns, like personal wise, that you felt like weren't being met?
Not really, personally, but it was just more like with the lack of communication. If I got something from you from noon and I didn't get something at 9 p.m., then that's just saying that you also consideration that you might have been busy, granted, but it'd be best to just say, hey, I got 2 hours worth of group meeting or homework to do, but this is what I'm doing, and if you don't hear from me, then that's why. So that way one person doesn't get mad or upset.
Because I know when this first came up as a conflict or an issue, we were both very heated about it, where to the point where, like, I know I was crying and you were very frustrated with me during my first semester here at Mason. I remember that very vividly.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some of the concerns that you had were that I wasn't being able to text you at the time right away because I was in classes. And how do you feel that we handled that situation?
Well, I mean, at first, I think it was probably where we were very heated, and where we couldn't get our points across, and maybe probably somewhere down the line either and both of us out of sheer pettiness did not message one another for quite some time. That was pretty immature of us, but once we got down to it and we talked it out, to know that one, you're probably busy in class or you're doing homework, that's fine. Just at least in your part, shoot me a message saying how long it's going to take, guesstimation, if you don't hear from either side, that's why, and then after that, everything was good.
What was the major impact that our conflict had on you? Like, was there physical, mental? What, did it just stress you out, or more so than it should have?
I think mentally it was just like, mentally at first it was like, is she doing it on purpose? What is she up to? Is something that's maybe out of pettiness, and then probably after that, and then stressing to see if you're doing okay. Because especially since we lived so far away at the time, it's like 3.5 hours away. It would hate to be an emergency had happened, or you went out and something happened, and all of a sudden it would be something tragic, or not.
Were there any other thoughts that were going through your head? Because it was my first, we had just more so gotten together after a year, and then I went away. Were you concerned at all that because I wasn't communicating that I was possibly cheating on you? Is that something that came across your mind?
Not really.
Okay. Just had to ask because sometimes that is a thought that comes across many guys' minds.
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yes. It can go both ways. What were the feelings that were feeding your judgments and attributed to us getting more heated at the beginning of the conflict?
Probably either side was to not to listen to one's compromise and lack of compromising. Just always be I'm right. Either side, that probably contribute more heatment to the argument.
Were there any triggering events that brought the conflict more so to the forefront of your mind?
I think the only time it'd be triggering is whenever there's a lack of communication.
So like if I went somewhere, what I mean is if I went somewhere like at the time when I was with Katie and Laura and Chris living in the dorm, were some of the triggering events like if I went out with them to dinner, or I just went out with them and I wasn't like at school studying? Did that trigger you in any way about communication?
As long as you had told me beforehand, I'm fine. But if you didn't, then yeah, that would probably be upsetting. And vice versa. If at the time, if I had gone out with my friends and I didn't tell you, and I went for like 6 hours straight without messaging you, I'm pretty sure on your end you was pretty upset.
Because I know for my needs and my concerns about the whole communications conflict, from my side of it, as we've discussed before, was my needs my needs or concerns was me trying to focus on my schoolwork, and also having to be in class and not being able to text, which I know were some of the major things for me. Because especially if I was in a 3-hour-long class, I wouldn't be able to text you right away. Or if the professor threatened to take away the cell phones. Or if the professor specifically said we're taking points off if you have your cell phone out every time we see it. So it was like in those cases for me when I know you would get frustrated with me if I wasn't responding back to you. But then I also felt that I was in a really tough position because I didn't want to lose any points on my classes because I would have my cell phone out. Not that I was trying to upset you at all though. And then I know during the time, like, my needs were mostly wanting you to better understand where I was coming from at the time, which now you do. Now you're very much more understanding about it. And I know we've kind of like waned off from a lot of the good mornings and good evenings and texts and sometimes communicating it all during the day, which I know sometimes gets to you. I'm sure it does. But what would you need from me in the future to feel differently?
I guess in the future it'd just be keep what in mind we talked about and keep up to the compromise.
Me being in the Navy was a huge other factor, like from us not being able to communicate, but remembering that you were in the Navy, that was another thing where we couldn't communicate all the time. Which I guess is why one more reason when I got here, I didn't know if it would be that big of a deal because when you're on the ship, we couldn't really communicate all that much anyways.
Right, especially during that time, it's a lot of underways for me.
So I do apologize for all the lack of communication. In my mind, it was just something that wasn't too big of a concern because you were in the Navy and communication was always like a very off and on thing because being able to get to technology, the phone, or anything like that. So when I came to college, it didn't really equate in my mind.
Yeah, and so I would probably apologize for back then if I was so hard-headed and very aggressive to get you to talk back, and probably did not explain so well until later on when we did talk about it.
There were other parties present other than just my boyfriend and I. It would usually be the addition of my mom being a third party. Whenever things got too heated, I would go to her and he would go to her, usually trying to use her as a mediator for both of us. We did not have her present in the video just because the main conflict was between the two of us and we had settled it between us. We eventually got to the point where we didn't need my mom in the picture anymore to work with us, so we wanted to go ahead and do the video just by ourselves. And sometimes there would be times when my mom would speak for me on my behalf if I couldn't reach him. And I understand that this would keep us embroiled in conflicts longer than it should, just because it's indirect communication, which is exactly what the conflict is about. For me, the conflict, I felt, or going over this conflict again, now I feel was trying to start some emotional space and make me feel better emotionally, I guess. Just because it was also really reaffirming that he was okay with how our communication was going, on top of going back and looking at how far we've come from the first fight from our communication. For him, I know it's more so, I believe, of a control thing, just from some of the answers that he'd given. He just wanted to make sure that he had control or knowing where I was. And when I was at a place, you would text him right away all the time, and then to always want to just be on my phone with him. I also understand that a lot of this conflict resides with me, just because I'm the one that doesn't respond. Whereas he was always at the ready with his phone usually, versus myself, where I will see something and I won't respond, or I will see something from other people and respond because it's related to school. Whereas with him, I kind of just set it off to the side. I'm just like, I'll get to it in a moment. I need to take care of these 5 other things first. So I realized that he's not my top priority, whereas I am at the top of his. Just because of what is happening immediately in my time frame.